Welcome to Old Guy Tech,
the OGT.TV recording studio.
Technology for the rest of us.
Hi, Rob Charney, Old Guy Tech TV, and with me in my corner up here is my partner in crime, John Manajastic, and we're going to...
Sometimes liberal guy.
Yeah, sometimes the liberal guy, I don't know. We're not that far apart anymore. It's scary for me, but...
Yeah, isn't it now?
But anyway...
Your son has to watch it on top of it.
I know, and of course we got our producer, Jonathan, in here throwing heckles at me as we go along. So hopefully we have some of you out there watching our show tonight. The show phone line is, of course, area code 530-621-1210, 621-1210. Feel free to please call if you've got some kind of opinion or idea. Tonight we are going to talk just a little bit about the State of the Union address, and I just have an opening remark, and then we'll get this thing rolling. So last night, President Obama's State of the Union address may have been his best chance to parlay his re-election triumph into momentum for the nitty-gritty of his policy agenda on jobs, immigration, and other subjects. But along with the opportunity to drive a message home to lawmakers and millions of viewers watching at home comes the temptation to skew facts to get the public opinion moving in his direction. So Obama, already the Affordable Care Act is helping to slow the growth of health care in the United States. Well, you know what? That's still an open question at best. What do you think, John? What's your feeling?
Well, number one, what he said is it's beginning to impact and slow down the increasing cost of health care in the United States. I'm not sure about that. I don't know. I personally am frustrated over the ACA because its implementation has been so slow. And of course, what we passed legislatively, I don't believe in the end will end up being what we have in quote unquote that awful word, universal health care. I know that the fact, and I don't know if it was you or somebody else that I think it was our old alum, Mitch Guzet. He had a cousin who was an insurance agent who was saying, God, the rates are unbelievable. You're going to go into sticker shock when you see what it is. But that's because we left it in the hands of the insurance companies who, when you have no pre-existing condition, you can keep kids on until 26. They'll go, oh my God, the risk is immense.
Well, my opinion is the best part of the whole thing is the pre-existing conditions clause. I mean, what's happened is we've had lack of competition because if you have anything, and I've got a couple of things, it keeps me from being able to jump to a lower rate.
Yeah.
So we're stuck. And so if it does anything, 2014, pre-existing conditions are to go away. But the question is, what about the slowdown in Medicare spending? Is it enough to make a dent in the tidal wave of spending as us baby boomers retire?
Well, but the thing of it is, and the way I look at it, having spent about a dozen years in the life, health, and casualty business, what he was saying was, and what he did, and I don't want to get into that $750 million argument of the campaign, but he did confront suppliers and pharmaceutical suppliers and say, look, we are your biggest client, and we're not, we're going to tell you what we're going to pay for. And part of this is, and gosh, if we have any doctors out there, please call and make your argument. We have let, when I sold health insurance, they were mandated to an 8% profit. Now we've capped them at a 20% profit. That's the health insurance companies.
Yeah.
We have to get involved. We have to the advantage of a universal health care is that we can dictate to doctors, hospitals, pharmaceuticals with a total unified risk pool how much is a reasonable amount to pay, and we want good care.
And that's the hope,
What we-
But with Obama, I mean, with the health law and the new regulations and the exchanges and the push for more coverage, will it bring down the spending for the whole health care system? That's the question.
Ultimately, from the liberal side, and this is where I have my biggest issues with Obama, he settled for Romney Care because it was the Republicans' plan, or he could at least say, "Hey, your guy came up with it," and rather than taking his approach is, I'll take what I can get, and then we'll make it what I want it to be, and that, of course, raises the hackles of people on the other side, because they call him a monarch, etc. But it's the conciliatory compromise. At the end of the day, it's going to be if it's going to work, it will have to be some form of a single payer. I think also because of Governor Moonbeam, my good buddy, Governor Jerry Brown, we do not realize yet in California, as this comes online by 2/14, California will be the leader and the model for the implementation of ACA.
Yeah.
Because as much as people just chide Brown and say this about him and Moonbeam and whatever, at 74, the Brown name is a very good franchise in this state. I mean, we elected him against.
Obviously,
he got his proposition through. I mean, things that are impossible, Jerry Brown does, because people remember, as Meg Whitman said, when I came to California, things were great. She just forgot that Jerry Brown was governor when she came to California. And at this point, the Jesuit, the graduate of the oldest university in California, Santa Clara, he's got really, he can't read, he's not going to run for president. And he has, I think, really no desire but to do what he sees to be the best to do for California. And anyway, to get back to where we came from, I don't know that I haven't seen enough of the ACA yet to say it's going to cost us a ton. It's going to cost us. It's not going to cost it. I am weary on both sides. I want to see implementation. I want to see it in action in 2014.
Absolutely. And and the forecasts about what will happen involve a lot of educated guesses. That's all there is. And of course, I just can't help harking back a number of years ago when Pelosi stood up there and saying that we have to pass this bill before we read it.
But that's Pelosi.
But I mean, that's just an example of.
But Rand Paul last night, in his response to the State of the Union, said, he goes, "We're passing bills and nobody's reading them."
Well, that's nothing new.
It is unfortunately an SOP in Congress.
Yeah.
You have to realize the level that they communicate on now, Rob, is on a 9th grade level.
Yeah.
Congress and the Senate both. We've dumbed down immensely. People don't read. And of course, on both sides, we listen to pundits, we listen to the radio, we listen to the television. We let people tell us what it is. I had somebody say to me, "Oh, you read the whole ACA?" Unfortunately, I did.
Good for you.
And it was a pain. But I wanted to know. I mean, because in my heart of hearts and souls of souls, I, as a man with at least an educational background in economics, think that universal health care, especially in a world market where everybody else has it and we don't, I think it's something we need to do. But I wanted to know what was proposed. I will tell you that on paper,
Yeah. Well, no,
but
and
again,
you're
that's
absolutely
why
right.
I push so hard for implementation.
One of the things that I'm finding, I've got a couple of friends that are doctors that I've talked to, and these two doctors are going in a different direction. One has decided to go to a concierge-style medical care.
Right.
And he's cut his group off at like 2,500 patients, period. You can get a hold of him 24/7. You have a hangnail, he'll come take care of you, and he's charging you, I believe, somewhere around $19,000 a year to take advantage of his service.
To be retained. That's not for the medical service. That's to retain him as your doctor.
That's right. But to look all over everything and be what we used to think was the good old fashioned country doctor. That's kind of what he's become. But you have to have the shekels to even talk to him. And then, of course, you got the other side. I have another doctor who was actually my personal doctor, and says, that's just not fair to the rest of the patients out there. And he absolutely hoards what this guy's doing. Likes the guy, doesn't agree with him. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens on that.
Well, there's gonna be some of that on, and the doctors are gonna throw tomatoes at the screen when I say this. MD does not mean $1 million. And when we were kids, if we showed the aptitude to become a doctor, the state of California would have paid for us to become doctors. And now, they are so beholden to student loans and private loans from pharmaceutical companies, etc. I mean, a doctor graduates from medical school at least $1 million in debt, unless he came in financially capable.
Right.
And therefore that drives the medical industry on a whole, drives these I have a dear friend, Samuel High graduate, an alum, who just retired from St. John's Hospital, and we get together, we have Thanksgiving every year. Wonderful guy, loves wine, good. But I have to say to him, Rob, another Rob, why does the stinking Tylenol cost $9 when I go into hospital, and it doesn't cost anywhere near that if I go to the Rite Aid, the CVS, or you can go to the bloody dollar store and buy a bottle of them for $1.
Right.
And then he goes into the diatribe, and I go, no, that doesn't. I understand what you're saying, and that was one of the huge mistakes I thought that Romney made when he actually said they can just go to the emergency room.
Yeah. Which they're doing.
That from anybody that knows anything about medicine and economics, you got to say, are you crazy?
Yeah.
That's the most cost inefficient way to dispense medical care. And if you have if they go in and say, well, you're diabetic, that emergency room visit is not going to help you deal with your diabetes. So
no, they won't take care of you. They're there just to put a Band-Aid on you, sew you up, pump, charge your heart if it needs it, and that type of thing. As far as long-term care, emergency room is not where you want to go. Okay, so we covered.
Let me pose a question to you.
All right, pose a question.
I know that you and the sheriff beat the gun issue to death.
Right.
This afternoon. My question to you is about the State of the Union. Is when all Obama said was it deserves a vote. He was eliciting the democratic process. He said, I don't care whether you vote yes or no, but whether it be background check, whether it be we off camera talked about this last week, that there was a Gallup poll where the lowest percentage was 48% of registered Republicans responding to the executive orders that anonymously that Obama proposed, supported all the way to some 89% in background checks. And then when Gallup turned around and said, now those are Obama's executive orders, people that were registered Republicans didn't like them to a level of 79%. They didn't approve. But the issue that he asked for the democracy to function and at least take a vote on something. How do you react to that?
The problem is when you say take a vote on something, is it something that makes sense, or is it something so stupid as a handle or a button or whatever it may be, where functionality doesn't make any difference? And there's the problem. Now, if you want to go back to background checks, all right, if you want to cover that issue, if that's what he wants to bring up and wants to bring a federal program of running background checks, guess what? California's had it for over 30 years. Nothing new here. I just interrupt to say, he said
this doesn't guarantee that it's going to stop a single occurrence of gun violence.
And probably one of the brightest moments he's ever had in his life, because that's exactly right. None of these laws will change a damn thing, because you can look at all the tragedies that we've had here recently, and every one of those people that did those were not eligible to have the guns, could not buy the guns, and were either stolen. Actually, they were all stolen, as a matter of fact.
They were all malfeased. They were all gotten by ill-gotten gains.
That's where the laws don't do a damn good of good.
Gabby Gifford's assailant did purchase the gun, ammunition, and clips, but he passed the background check.
Right.
You know, and I'm sure that Dormer purchased his guns. You know, and then they were saying yesterday he modified them to fire automatically. The guy was a lieutenant commander in the Navy or Marines.
Right.
Come on. He's capable of doing that.
Well, you know, not only that, the thing that they're not bringing up about Dormer is the fact that law enforcement, you and I and law enforcement have two different standards, particularly in the state of California. Law enforcement officers are able to purchase all these other guns, the so-called black guns and guns that are not considered California legal. They can get it by an exclusion by having a letter written by their supervisor, handed in. They don't have to wait any time. There's no background check, and they can get whatever they want. So there's an issue. What's that?
Here's my only issue, and the part that and I agree with you, but by saying, you know, and of course it was almost revivalist, but I did buy into him, and I do on this issue, rather than as it always happens. You know, we have some, you know, Reagan gets shot and it takes a year for the, oh God, I can't think of his secretary's name, you know, the Gun Act, you know, and then it fades away and then it gets destroyed. And executive orders were implemented. Gosh, I wish I could remember the name of the act, but executive orders get involved, etc. The fact of the matter is, I would not disagree with me when I said Newtown was a terrible thing.
Absolutely.
Rather than we just letting it slip by the wayside. Okay, I think somebody has to that our dysfunctional Congress and Senate need to come to grips and say, okay, realistically, what can we need to make a statement about guns in this society. What can one realistically pose? And rather than letting it fade off the radar screen, use the democratic process of elected representatives that you and I both agree that are, you know, elected by us supposedly and then bought off by somebody after the fact. But I so much just want to see the democratic process. I want to see the legislators and Obama, who avoided this issue for 4 years, I just do put it in the machine, okay, and do no harm. I mean, is what I'm talking about. And realistically, these guys need to do some work and think about, well, you know, make some propositions. Can we ban assault weapons? No, that's ridiculous. We certainly aren't going to take anybody's guns away. That wouldn't happen in the United States. But the issue is so unnerving. And 20 little kids getting shot, and you know, and here in my own Kern County, the incident at Taft High School, which was anomalous and not in the fold. It you know, and it goes even further, bullying, and I mean, the kid that got shot is just damn lucky that the kid that shot him didn't know the difference between buckshot and birdshot, and that's the difference between a fatality and an injury.
Okay, but the problem still occurs, John, is what is the question? You're gonna, how many times do we have, this is one of the few issues that has an amendment attached to it, okay? So, as we said, we agreed that we don't think in our time we're going to be looking at confiscation. But as I've always said, always question, you never know. And you're saying, okay, so he's saying bring up a vote, talk about something. But here's the problem. There is no common ground. You have the Feinsteins on one side, the privileged senator from the state of California that has their own armed guards, had at one time her own concealed weapons permit, and again saying, well, it's okay for me to have it, but we don't want you to have it. And so what you have is you have the entitled wanting to bring issues that are only going to affect the others, but not them.
And you know that we differ. I mean, I am not. I don't want to see anybody's guns taken away. I don't have the emotional attachment that you have to firearms, nor the involvement. You know, isn't it grand that they only took wrestling out of the Olympics and not the shooting events?
That may still happen. The story is still out on that one.
No offense. I'm sitting there going, like pentathlon, maybe we take that out and not Greco-Roman wrestling that actually goes all the way back to
some
the first
history.
Olympics.
Yeah, I agree.
Anyway, as we digress, but I understand what you're saying, but I think that we have elected officials, and yes, we have the Feinstein, who I think is, I objected to the NRA, and Obama's kids get protection, but everybody else's kids don't. I thought that was taking it to a ridiculous level. They are then you should say Obama's kids, Kennedy's kids, Bush's kids.
It's the line in the sand, John. Remember what we talked about?
Right?
It's a line in the sand. You have to draw it somewhere. So yeah, maybe it's ridiculous, but that line's got to be drawn.
And again, it resonates more that guns are very important to you. My issue, and I think the issue last night in the State of the Union, and let's have a vote on it, okay, which was appealing to an emotional, and the crowd went wild, is that we need to examine this as an intelligent society that kills an awful lot of people with guns. If there really is anything we can do, is there some meaningful legislation that would make a statement?
Are we going to ban automobiles because they're the number one cause of death in the world? Are we going to take our doctors? Your doctor is more likely to kill you than a firearm.
I understand that, but
okay.
We're going from the ridiculous to the sublime.
We're going from the ridiculous to the ridiculous, John.
I've seen it 1,000 times. The guns didn't do it, but the fact of the matter is, and as you well know, if you're the last car in line in California in the 20-car accident, and somehow you rear end the 20 cars in front of you, and through some bizarre happenstance, everybody in those cars dies, you've killed those 20 people. Knives.
Okay, so
weapons.
Here's let me just look at one more thing. What bothered me about what Obama did last night is he brings on stage all the victims of gun violence, right? Okay. Where are all the people that were able to save their lives because of firearms? This is the side that you never hear. The statistics aren't being kept.
You do.
Where?
You do hear it, but people, in Sacramento, right down the hill from you, on New Year's Eve, a guy gets in an argument in a bar in Old Town Sacramento, pulls out a gun, shoots 2 people, and an off-duty Sacramento County sheriff who's working security follows him out, and they capture him.
Yeah.
And a gun battle ensued.
Right.
I understand exactly what you're saying.
Okay.
I err on the side of, in Aurora, Colorado, the people, if somebody had a gun in a dark theater, I'm sorry, I have enough experience with guns.
You have?
More people
have you worked shoot houses? Have you ever tried the actual skills that it takes to do that? It's not that difficult, John. You got to look at this. My guns, I look at my guns as a hobby, especially my trap shooting, just like a golfer looks at his clubs as part of the instruments he uses for golf.
Okay? Oh, absolutely.
So,
but I assure you,
and to say categorically that nobody could have stopped that person in the theater, I cannot swallow. I'm sorry. I don't believe that.
Considering he was wearing body armor and it was a dark theater.
As you read the story, he did not have full body armor on. He had black nylon stuff. He did have a vest, but his groins, his legs, his neck, and his head were all vulnerable.
Did you know that? Were you in the dark theater? Would you know
I read
that
the
those areas were
reports.
vulnerable?
I read the reports that came out. I also
But what
said,
I'm saying-
also,
what I'm
I was
saying
one of
is
the first ones to
they-
question
they-
the fact when
on-
they
on
came
the
out
other
and they
hand,
said that they,
Sacramento, on New
when they
Year's
said
Eve
that
doesn't
the
get any
Armalite
attention
was not
here.
in there, that he wasn't used, you know. But the,
A qualified person with a firearm who happened to be a female, apprehends this guy that shoots in cold blood two people. I applaud her greatly. I also go, well, man, they were really lucky that she needed the extra job and was working security at a bar on New Year's Eve.
So my point is, though, is that Obama was using a tear jerk. Oh, woe is me! Look at these poor people, and yeah, absolutely, my heart bleeds for those poor people losing their children and loved ones and all that. Absolutely, but to bring emotion into this thing so that the cameras could pan on all these people and all the Congress can stand up and applaud the nice little people and not look at the other side is just not fair to the argument.
But the other side, and again, and if it's okay with you, I'll say we should move on to something else because you spent a great deal of time on this today.
That's I have.
I understand. Yeah, I understand your side. I don't share your level of vehemence and need. I play golf. Yes, I love my golf clubs. And yes, I could take one of those golf clubs out of the bag and smack somebody in the head so hard they'd be on the ground dead. I mean, it can be as lethal a weapon as the gun. I just have to be in much closer quarters to affect death.
Okay.
With my
Well, what we're
golf
going to do, I'll
clubs.
tell you what, because I have another thing I want to talk about. So we'll agree to disagree on that subject, which is
We'll visit this again many
and we'll visit
times,
again, and that's why we're doing this, because the whole idea of being an alternate media source, and that's what I'm ultimately wanting us to be, is the ability that we can talk about things just like we're talking about now. We can agree to disagree, and at the end of the show, we're still friends. And you know what?
Hey.
That's the way it's going to be.
I don't know if I'm going to be your friend if you don't give the phone number again.
Oh, yeah. And I just can't believe we don't have any calls. But the number's right on the screen, John. You can't see it. But once again, 530-621-1210. It's been up there the whole time. People are scared of me right now. They don't want to call. But I have one more thing. We're going to try to hold this to 30 minutes. I do have one more thing that I do want to talk about. Obama last night talked about the minimum wage. And he wants to go to $9. Okay, once by 2014, right? Is that not my understanding?
That is the understanding.
So, and when he ran, and I looked this up because I just wanted to see, because it sounded awfully familiar to me. In 2008, Obama, when he was going to be running for office, came out and said, oh, I want to see $9.50 by 2011. So actually, this is not a new issue for him, and nor is it one that I disagree with. Having been a small business owner is my only concern, and some of the unskilled jobs that are out there. Can the small business owner still survive, keep wages at $9, maybe possibly they're going to get benefits now as well, they're going to get some kind of medical, still make a profit and keep those doors open? And then what happens with inflation as they find out that minimum wage has gone up enough that they have to raise the prices? There's my concerns.
Well, Rob, you know how I feel about that. And that is the fact that he pointed out that there are, and part of that bunch of people that aren't paying any income tax make $24,000 or $16,000 a year for a family of four. And you and I go, huh? How could you, possibly?
Right.
Here's the issue. Again, and it is the argument of, do we stop spending? Or, do we get this economy back in shape by cutting spending drastically and these things they call entitlements that we've earned, like Social Security?
Right.
Or my point of view is that what we need is a healthy middle class or a healthy tax base, and elevate these people above the poverty
level
line.
Right.
Okay. That would make them taxpayers because they make now a taxable income.
Right.
the other issue is, and what is tied here, and you got to look at it realistically, is if you and I think $9 is a reasonable wage. I have a part-time job that pays $10 an hour,
Yeah.
and I get that paycheck and go, God, dog, that's no money at all.
Yeah.
You know, but the issue is if you raise that minimum wage to $9 an hour, how does it impact immigration?
Oh, well, and that's the other side of the argument we didn't even get to.
Becomes
Right.
much more attractive.
Right. Right.
So you have to integrate these things, and you have to do immigration reform. You know, in defense of Obama, whether effective or not, he's put more boots on the border than anybody ever has done before. He's deported 2 million illegals out of this country, which is a record. You know, he actually has been doing real things about the problem of people coming across the border and sending the illegals back to where they came from in a much greater way than has been done before. As you know, we have an alum and friend who is a federal immigration judge who spent 27 years getting them in and now is sending them back to their country of origin. But the issue is you have to, and this is part of the issue of the fragmentation of government at this point. We don't look at things in an integrated way. You have to integrate immigration reform with a $9 minimum wage or a higher minimum wage. I think, you know, part of the solution, and of course Marco Rubio and Rand Paul were going on about, and I'm going, no. The trickle down doesn't work. We have not seen the trickle down work in 30 years. You have to somehow make the middle class healthy enough to pay taxes, to increase the tax base. So the government, and I noticed that both of the responses last night, they said big government. The only thing that Obama really said big government, he said we need smarter government. I agree with that. He didn't say what that meant. But that statement resonated with me because I agree. We need smarter government. And they have to look at things like minimum wage increase, immigration reform. They are all tied together with improving this economy.
And I don't disagree. And
you have to take an integrated approach. You can't do it in piecemeal. And the new world says no. You have to think on a much more broad base.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a good idea. You know, I would love to see us get to a point where minimum wage actually isn't needed, that you get fair wage for fair work, and we don't need the government standing over us saying, you know, the least you can pay this person is $9. I think free enterprise actually works. But in this case, if your scenario is correct and a person making $9 an hour working 40 hours a week will actually add into the tax rolls, all the better. But I thought that was a rather interesting statement, and not one that's new. It's been batted around before. So, you know, John, do you have something in wrapping you want to talk about right now? Let's just wrap this up.
Well, my only statement is this. You know, I thank everybody that tunes in and watches two guys that know one another for nearly a half a century.
Yeah.
With different perspectives. I don't know if they're completely different points of view. I appreciate you tuning in. But, Jesus, I've argued with you for years. I'm looking for some fresh meat. I'm looking for somebody to pick up that phone and call us.
I don't know what I'm going to have to do. I beg out every time we send an email at these people, give us a call, please give us a call. But I don't know. I don't know what the button's going to be.
It worked years ago. We need to give away a propeller beanie for everybody that calls.
There you go.
And they'll be in here like crazy. Love to hear from the folks in Placer, Sacramento, and the world.
Yeah.
As you know, I extended to my Australian friends because it's noon in Australia. Right now, give us a holler.
Yeah,
we want to hear what you've got to say.
Give us a call. We do, and John's absolutely right. We want to hear other opinions and other ideas. I want you, of course, to call and make sure that you let John know that I'm right. And
got dog right. I mean, you know, Rob's not wrong all the time.
Anyway, I want to.
Anyway, I enjoy doing this, and I enjoy that Rob makes this available. And I know that we both made a commitment to do this for a period of time. and that we cut it at. We're cutting down the amount of time.
A little bit.
At a point
Yep.
with no one else, without more input, it becomes a bit boring.
Yeah.
Please give us a call. I
Yeah.
mean, tell them you hate what I think. I would love for you to hate me. I would love for you to love me, and Rob likewise.
Absolutely.
We want to hear from you.
Well, hopefully you guys will give us a chance to call. Remember, it's every Wednesday. Check in on us. I send out an email blast all the time, and we post on Facebook when we're up and broadcasting. And we really want you guys to take advantage of it. And on behalf of John Matajastik, this is Rob Charney for Old Guy Tech TV. We'll see you soon.
They will support you. They will do referrals between clients. You can't ask for a more complete marketing package.
We love the windfall!
And you can too. Think advertising with the Windfall couldn't get any better? Well, it just did. For only $125 for a 30-second commercial filmed by Old Guy Tech TV, you can be seen and heard.